So what do we do over the next 15, 20 minutes? I'll try not to be in this fantastic panel way. You can hear me at the back okay, yeah? Pretty much going to tell you a story. And that's really what it is. Take everything I say with a grain of salt. Apologies beforehand. If you're offended by profanity, it will be used. Come from an immigrant family. You're looking at a map of the world. So you guys have kind of North America here, and you have kind of Russia, so former Soviet Union over here. My father was born in Uzbekistan, grew up in Ukraine. My mom was born in northern Siberia, grew up in Latvia. My brother was born in Latvia. I was born in Israel. And for a long time, the running joke in our family, the only one who was really Canadian was our dog. But here's the thing. Two brilliant engineers, my mom and my dad, didn't speak much English. And like a lot of immigrants, doesn't matter if it was 1980 at the time, doesn't matter if it was 1990, doesn't matter if it's 2011. Unfortunately, the reality of it is, as an immigrant to a new country, you're treated like shit. That's what happens. Doesn't matter how smart you are. We have brilliant lawyers from India that are working behind tills, making $8 or whatever the minimum wage is today. We have brilliant, engineers, doctors from all over the world who can't even get a proper paying job. Why? Because they're immigrants, they don't fit in. It's always been a problem. And see, here I have two parents, didn't speak the language, knew nothing about business, couldn't get a job in what their kind of profession was. And they struggled. My dad opened up a pawn shop, my mom was the breadwinner for a bit. Somehow, they were smart enough to save a little bit of money, and after a couple of years, they opened up a furniture business. Furniture business that did very, very well for them. Eventually, they sold it, and over the years, they employed dozens and dozens of people. And I had this in the back of my head. So here I am, 1997, just finished high school, and I grew up in what you could say kind of is a well-off group of people, group of friends, private school, and everyone I knew was kind of going off to Europe. That's where they had the money, and my parents may have made money, my parents may have done well, but that doesn't mean I've done well, so I had to earn my keep. And so I took what money I had, found some guy, remember this is 1997, I found some guy on the internet, and I said, hey, you in Belize, I'd love to come down and work for you for a month. And this creepy guy said, sure, come on down. Or yeah, 1997, right? I mean, who's anyone what ICQ is? I mean, it wasn't even around then, right? And so I go down. Here I am, 17, building tree nurseries. I actually burnt down half the tree nurseries. I wasn't very good at it, but it started to evoke something in me and said, wow, this is a pretty cool place. Belize has changed quite a bit from what it was then to what it is now. From there, I ended up actually studying in Singapore for a little bit. I produced a small radio show. It's part of the university project, traveled around Southeast Asia. And then I came back home, and here I am. Remember, I come from an immigrant family. I have an undergrad degree in communications, which means absolutely nothing to my parents. It's pretty much a waste of money in their eyes. And what am I doing back in the university? I'm mowing lawns. All right, my mom was not thrilled. Why was I mowing lawns? Because I said, I'm going to take the year off, another thing she wasn't thrilled about. And I'm going to go to Latin America for a year, another thing she wasn't thrilled about. This is around 2011, it's like 2001, 9/11 just happened. But I made her one promise. I said, I'm going to write my GMATs. For those that don't know, that's kind of your entrance exam into your MBAs. I'll apply to a few schools. I'm going to go have my fun, and I'll be back in a year, and I'll try to become somewhat professional. And so I went, and I had fun. I had a lot of fun. This is what I loved. I loved traveling. I loved seeing the world. I loved developing countries. But I ran out of money everywhere I went. So I sold sandwiches on the beach to the gay community in Chile. I built a small tree nursery with an NGO, in Costa Rica, in Brazil. I can't remember. Whatever we could do to make money to keep traveling, that's all I wanted to do. And then here I am, got into in a couple MBA programs. I chose McMaster for one amazing reason. They had a co-op program for someone who has no business experience. So it was a great way to blend both business, but also practical business knowledge and business practicality. And so here I am in my MBA. Does anybody here have an MBA or a business degree of any sort? Okay, great. For those that don't know, who don't have an MBA, you probably have heard one pretty much thing, that MBAs are money-hungry, scoundrels, shouldn't really exist. They're kind of up there with lawyers for the most part. And that's what I faced in my MBA. Teach you, corporate ladder, climb the corporate ladder, gouge as much as you can. For anybody that has watched Dragon's Den, they are kind of the Kevin O'Leary's of the world. And that's really what it was about. It was about being the best at what you could do, but it was not about being an entrepreneur. And so here I am in my class, watching 200 or so MBAs who are going to be probably some of the best business leaders in all of Canada. And not one of them wants to be an entrepreneur. Not only that, the MBA teaches you It's changed now about big businesses. And in all that traveling that I've done in developing countries, I noticed one really interesting thing. There was a micro business sector, which everybody now knows is microfinance. There were the big businesses, the one, where huge corporations, oil, resources. Nobody was focusing on small businesses. And why did small business interest me? Because my parents started a small business. And two, if you look at statistics, what has built every single GA country around the world is when they focus on building a middle class and focusing on building a small business community. Over 95% of Canadians employed properly in Canada, in North America, in GA countries, in some way, shape, or form, are employed by small businesses. Not micro businesses. By micro, I mean 1 or 2 employees. Not big businesses. It's the small business community. But if you look at developing countries, Africa, Asia, Latin America, there is really no substantial middle class and no substantial small business community. Millions and millions of entrepreneurs, micro-entrepreneurs in my opinion, that all shouldn't be there, but I won't get into that right now, and then a lot of big businesses. And so out of my MBA, I launched a charity with a good friend of mine called MBAs Without Borders. Premise, we brought fancy MBAs from around the world. We recruited them from Harvard, from Oxford, from Wharton, from Australia, from Master, from you name it, 400 schools around. And we brought them into Africa, Asia, Latin America to work on either business-type projects or social business-type projects. And I'll get into social businesses in a second and why I hate that term and I never want to be called a social entrepreneur. But, thank you, George, by the way. Anytime. So here's what happened. So we started MBAs Without Borders, and it was a decent NGO. We worked in everything from Nicaragua to Haiti to Afghanistan, renewable energy projects, and over the years we did about 100 projects in 25 countries, and in a unique way, I was ready to leave after about 4 or 5 years. We actually technically sold MBAs Without Borders. You can't sell a charity because there's no shareholders. But I own the trademark rights to MBAs Without Borders. I own the website, so I sold, in a sense, all those rights in exchange for a little bit of cash, which I ended up blowing. So why did I blow it? Because I started thinking about what was next. I had to get married, I had an amazing wife. All this traveling does take a toll on you. Again, I'm not traveling to London or Ottawa. I'm in some pretty crazy countries and some pretty crazy times. And so I looked at a couple of things, and then I said, I'm an idiot. Why am I giving up all the resources that I have? And I started to hear about a company called Tom's Shoes. Raise your hand if you ever heard of Tom's Shoes. Okay. I heard about a company called Tom's Shoes, which, for those that don't know, for every shoe you buy, they give a shoe away to a child in need. And then I heard about a company called Veja, which is a French-based company that makes fair trade shoes in Brazil. And I started noticing this trend that consumers were saying, we want something that's fashionable, but we want it to stand for something and to be able to stand in something that matters for us, literally, no pun intended. And so what ends up happening is, I got pretty pissed off. I love the Veja model, but one of the things that I hate, after over $1 trillion has been spent in sub-Saharan Africa on aid, there are more countries with a lower GDP today than they had in 1960, and it is disgusting. With all the amount of money we have spent and spent and spent, we have not somehow been able to move forward Africa when, look at the countries we have been able to move forward. Eastern Europe. After World War II, mainland Europe. Why? The Marshall Plan was enforced and there was a limit. We said 5 years maximum. Here's the amount of money you get, maximum 2.5% of your total GDP, total gross national, total domestic output. That's the max you get. 5 years, they did it. With Africa, we never stopped. We continue to give. We have idiots like Bono running around telling us we need to give away and cut out trade when they should be just singing and keeping to that. And so I said, with all this going on, is there a better way? And I personally believe business is that better way. I'm not saying business is the only answer, but business is what is building developing countries beyond anything we know. Apologize, I can't remember. Emma has a fantastic project in Tibet, and with all due respect to Emma, a lot of people bash China, right? Everybody's, China, bad. China has some crap, without a doubt. Without a doubt, Canada has some crap. But China has some crap. The products sometimes are faulty, but China has something pretty amazing if you actually look at it. What country ever in the history of humankind has been able to go from 0 to 120% in 30 years? They have done something that nobody else has done, and they've done it for one specific reason, in my opinion. 30 years ago, when they opened up kind of the quasi-markets, they said, we are going to focus on manufacturing. Why manufacturing? Manufacturing is the very simplest way to employ a lot of people very quickly, and now as a result, China has the biggest middle class and will be that superpower that it needs to be. And so that is what kind of got me going, because if you look at a company like Tom's Shoes, brilliant marketing company, but it is the wrong way to change Africa. If we continue to give away shoes, here's a perfect example. When I go to a village, for whatever reason, in some of the countries where Tom's gives, or any shoe company gives away shoes, you know what the number one thing I hear? How come you guys aren't buying from the local cobbler down the street who has the exact same shoe, maybe for even cheaper? Why should I? Tom's will be buying next week. They'll give away our shoes for free. What incentive is there for local business people to actually have, every time we give away a net, every time we give away things, you're actually destroying the opportunity for a local entrepreneur, both in Canada and in Africa, to make something of themselves. It is degrading, and we've been doing it for decades and decades, actually 3 decades specifically. And so I'm not saying we're the right way, so then I started thinking, okay, what can we do? What can we do in Africa? How do you make shoes? Shoes seem to be catching on. Well, it's pretty crazy. Liberia in West Africa, post-Civil War, pre-Civil War, always has had the largest amount of rubber in all of Africa. East Africa, Ethiopia, has the largest amount of cow, sheep, and goat, more livestock than all of Africa combined, and is the only country in all of Africa that's been able to beat Chinese imports and still has a decent domestic shoe manufacturing industry. That is all you need to make shoes. Great rubber, beautiful leathers, craftsmanship. And that's what we did. And doesn't it just sound simple? It's like, why is nobody making shoes in Africa? Sorry, to clarify, we're not the only company making shoes in Africa. We're the only one making it for the export market and brand it as an African-made product. Nobody did it because it's fucking hard.